actually helps me, but.
Just waiting for Apple to tell us we can start. Okay, so we're gonna open our meeting now at 7 o'clock, and if everyone could please stand and join us for the pledge of allegiance. Meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Next up is public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening from anybody? Okay.
Up in the back.
All right.
Which mic? This one? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back again. I'd like to know that...
Can you give us your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Gwyneth Tommel, 68 Powder Mill Road, Maynard. Now, many of you probably don't travel that road because of the sinkholes that have not been fixed. I'm getting a little tired of the general public because you stand and you listen. Doesn't matter. Nobody's going to fix it. Why bother? Okay? Nobody's even marked how the sinkholes have gotten bigger. Now, when you hire somebody, one of the questions you ask is how do you keep your workspace? Maynard needs to start getting inventive, okay, with the tools that we have. If we get so many complaints, and the poor ladies downstairs are getting them, number them at a certain amount, send somebody out, find the company. Okay? There was at one point a ramp with a metal piece that you could see this much air, and we're driving on the sidewalk to avoid flying. The other thing is, who's responsible for any damage to any vehicles? Okay? Nobody seems to want to step up. Both Waltham Street and Powder Mill Road never had a sign put up, travel at your own risk. When you see professionals put down cold patch or patch, and you've got a nice bucket on your piece of equipment, but you go over it with the track, and that's good enough. Maynard's getting crapped on. Okay? Let our people in our town departments start being inventive. Start letting them shift a little bit. Okay? Cemetery, we know it's not going to get much better. The reason why is we don't have the manpowers. Okay? We have a nursery. Pick a tree, move the tree. Stop buying trees. We have enough land to pick a tree and move a tree. Okay? The other thing is, in the town cemetery, there's a ramp going from top to bottom. It's dogwood. It's bittersweet. Now, when I was growing up, it was kept cool. Okay? We busted our butt. We burned. Okay, well, let's be inventive. Let's have a training session for our fire department on that side. Get rid of the dogwood, get rid of the bittersweet, have somebody go in if there's nice, okay, saplings, take them. Let's change the canopy. Once you change the canopy, you're going to have stronger trees. You're going to have better growth. The only way I know to really kill bittersweet is to burn it. You also, along that edge, have graves that are now covered. They're flat stones. They're lost. They're forgotten. So in 5 years, if that was your family, how would you feel? Not very good. Definitely. We only have a certain amount of number, okay, of money to work with. Great. Be inventors. We need loom. Has anybody asked for a donation? We have sinking graves. We have veteran markers that people can pick up and put in their cars. And no, I have not heard from our historical committee. They have no follow-up. And that's the problem. Nobody follows up. And everybody says it. Doesn't matter, nobody cares. It's not going to get fixed. Why should it? 4 hours work for pay them 8 hours, they work 4. That's not always true, okay? But give them the leeway to be inventive with what they have. And we're not doing that. We're not trusting our foreman. And that's a shame. This is a mill town. Start working together. Start communicating, because there isn't any. You want to stop car damage? Hey, inventive idea. Know it's a little expensive? Get a can of fluorescent glow-in-the-dark paint. Even in fog and rain, your headlights hit it. You now have 45 seconds to respond, and that's the sinkhole from the light to the sinkhole. You have 45 seconds. So if there's car damage, who do we go to? Do we come to you? Do we go to the people that screwed us? Because they did. Badly on both projects. And nobody seems to care. But the sinkholes are getting bigger. Please let them be inventive. Give them some rope. Please. We have different departments that can help each other out. And they're not. Whether they don't want to or they're not being allowed to. We have a certain amount of money to spend. I get that. We don't have the loom. Okay? We had a piping problem. I get it. But you know what? Down the road, we need to fix that too, because this is only a temporary fix. And that's a shame. That's utterly a shame. And it's disrespect. The dead can't fight back. We have to fight for them. Okay? I take care of Veterans Row. That's my community service. They fought, they died. They can't fight anymore. So who's taking up their cause? Oh, great, it's Memorial Day. Hey! What happens after that? They're covered and they're buried up again. They're forgotten. And that's everybody in the cemetery. We raise monuments to our heroes. Forget the flags. How many monuments and heroes are in our cemeteries? And as far as cutting, I know I cut that whole cemetery all the way around. So you go downstairs, up by the fence, they don't care. It's not being taken care of. I realize change is hard. Old dinosaurs die hard. Yes, we need the traditions, we need the history, and we need to keep that going. But again, we're not being inventive. We're not punishing the people for not doing their job correctly. And the more we accept this, the more these contracts go, yeah, hey, let's go to Maynard. They don't care. Let the ladies downstairs, you complain, there's number so-and-so. At a certain number, have either highway or a new superintendent go out. Check it. Right up. Okay? I know it's in the contract that you have to keep a work area clean. But we don't have to accept substandard work either. Can any of you go 25 miles, 30 miles down Powder Mill Road without hurting your car? Can you do that on Waltham Street? 25 and 30 are the speed limits throughout the town. Can you? You can't. You have to go slow. You have to go cautiously. If you can't see the hazard, whose fault is that? So please, please change things listen and act. And please don't use the excuse, it takes time. Because those cars are still getting damaged. Who do we go to? Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay. Minutes to accept. First set of minutes are from our July 2nd meeting. Make a motion to move to accept and approve the meeting minutes of July 2nd, 2019 as shown. Do a second.
Second.
Okay, any conversation or discussion about the minutes of July 2nd, 2019? All those in favor of approving? Is somebody taking notes for Melissa? Because she's not here.
Yep.
You mean we're taking minutes, is that what you mean? Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Melissa doesn't take notes during the regular meeting anyway.
Yeah.
No.
That's true too. All right, we have executive session meeting minutes from June 18th.
Those she takes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Blame her.
Not here, let's blame her. I'll make a motion to accept and approve the executive minutes of June 18th, 2019, but not to release those minutes. Do the second.
Second.
Anybody have any questions or concerns about the executive session minutes of June 18th, 2019?
Just one question relative to the releasing of the minutes when, you know, when the issue is behind us. When do we know that that issue is behind us?
No, that's a good question. So I always check with the legal counsel just to make sure that it's said and done. These particular issues, as you know, are not. So, but that's a great question. So I've assigned Becky just to keep a track of the minutes and the topics of what they're related to. And so periodically we review it and just send it off to clerks, or the town council.
As far as we're concerned, it's behind us, but we don't know.
These subjects? Sure. Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Correspondences. This correspondence consists of A through H. Make a motion to accept and approve the 8 correspondence items A through H as shown. Do I have a second?
Second. I got a quick question or comment on the, on F, the Hanscom Air Force Base
Yeah.
letter. Is that something, if the letter itself makes it look like they're really not doing anything other than saying, what
Yep.
would we be interested in, you know, what type of things do we think, where do we think they might want to go? But are we plugging ourselves for a location and talking to the mill about?
That was the first thing we asked ourselves as to where they might go. Can you speak any more to that, Megan?
Sure. Yep, I think we can put them in touch with some of the commercial landlords in town, but since it was addressed to the board, we wanted to make sure you had a chance to review it before we took action. But if if the board's comfortable with us sharing it with property owners that we're aware of, then we're happy to take that step.
Yep.
Yeah, we were kind of on the outskirts of the territory we were looking for. I already sent I just sent an acknowledgement that we got it to the person who sent it to us. So we would love to help them out if we can.
But you're a Marine, so I know you probably won't be interested in helping the Air Force.
I wouldn't mind a little extra revenue. Yeah.
A lot of negativity. It's okay. All right.
Same team. We're on the same team now.
Yeah, we're always on the same team.
I wanted to just do a quick comment on G with the guide for licensing, permitting, and zoning.
You're stealing my stuff.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, you do it. You do it. I don't know that much about it, I saw the hard copy, and I see it, I know that we have it online now, and I think it's a great addition, and I think Bill and Caitlin were the ones that worked on it.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yep.
All right, it's a group
And you
effort.
got also, I think the Economic Development Committee was involved.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, there you go.
I had the same reaction, that it was
I
great.
was great. And it is on the website now, right?
Presumably too, when a business owner comes
Yeah,
in saying, I'm interested, you can just hand them that and say, welcome to town.
Nicely done.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Mike, on the golf course, Mike,
Yes.
they have two lines, and it looks like they're carrying 7,000 over from last year.
We're still working on it, actually, the 16,000 that we're trying to get from last year,
They should be paying us.
yes.
We sent them the
And
letter.
What's been done is, it's been carried over as capital, and when we did the audit, we basically said, no, we wanted the money, so we haven't heard from them, but it's on my agenda to get it done.
Yeah, we'll follow up with them.
It's called rent.
That's a whole other.
I think that's my-
difficult to stay on
I
straight.
think my kid just moved out because of a capital issue. Now he's paying,
I'm involved with it
capital.
now, you know.
So basically it's rent, right?
Yes.
And so we're gonna ask that question?
I mean, now I'm following it literally monthly, so.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah. no,
I just saw the number and it doesn't make sense that, the deal is
Yep.
pay, and this is what it's done, and on December 31st, the balance gets paid to the town.
We'll follow up with them.
All right.
Yep.
Anyone else? Anything on the correspondence issues?
Well, but to a point, I think it's good that we're able to see the reports on a monthly
Yep.
basis now, and I think, to Chris's point, we were not able to see that, it
No.
wasn't reported on a monthly basis, so.
No, you're right. Yeah, to their credit, like they are keeping that end. Yep.
All right, all those in favor? Thank you. All right, the consent agenda consists of A through G. Make a motion that we accept and approve the list of 6 consent agenda items A through F. There's actually a G, so G as shown.
Second.
I have, before we get to the F and G, I have a quick comment about E. Not that I'm opposed to the proposed zoning bylaw, but this sort of gets to the comment that the discussion you and I had, Greg, last year during that after town meeting or before town meeting time. I would prefer that any articles that are coming for even if it's just for approval like this one, because it's not our, that it be on its own agenda item. The reason I say that is so that the public can see it listed on the agenda as an item. The public knows it's there.
Yeah.
Publication of the agenda and can come in and make comments about the agenda item or the agenda item, but the warrant article. And we have that knowing going forward as we begin our process.
Sure.
And as we determine, because eventually we'll discuss that and vote, and presumably vote whether or not we again, it's a planning board article, but.
No, you're not wrong, and I agree with your sentiment that we want to make sure that we allow opportunities for the public
And that
to.
it's known that it's out there, because this sort of consent agenda item can sneak through.
Fair. This came up, so not urgent, but like this came up so recently that we're trying to help in this case those folks at 111 Powder Mill Road.
Yeah, and I think the article,
Yeah.
I don't have any issue
No,
with
no.
the article itself.
Yeah.
It's strictly just to make sure that it's publicized and that people have an opportunity to see it, and it's.
Sure. In that regards, I'd have to check with Megan and maybe Bill in regards to the urgency to have this, because if you would prefer that we table this particular item from the consent agenda to allow it to have its own item on the August 6th.
No.
Okay,
It's
all right.
okay.
Just checking. Okay.
But as we build the special town meeting warrant itself.
Point taken.
Understood.
And for next year's special,
Okay.
next year's annual.
Okay.
I had a question about this Coolidge Field request. So we're confident that no one else uses it during that time?
So, good question. That was the first thing I asked Becky. So she has a calendar devoted just to field use to make sure that we're not overlapping, and she checks up on that. But that was absolutely, we wouldn't want to double
So
book.
that would be,
Yep.
that's okay. And I'm assuming, so it's for, would it be for soccer, for baseball,
For spring,
whatever they need?
Yeah.
well, I would imagine it's really soccer and field hockey for the,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
for the,
So that field's gonna get chewed up.
Probably.
Where do they play out there? Because I don't think they don't play baseball in the fall, so it wouldn't be baseball.
It'll be soccer.
Soccer, field hockey. Do they have middle school field hockey?
softball there. I think all they play there is softball.
Currently, yeah,
Softball
Down
and
there.
t-ball, yeah.
right. So it would be,
And then, I think I shared that with you, Chris, on the calendar. I'm gonna have to put that up there.
Anything else?
yeah.
They are using, Coolidge, because the Fowler Field is gonna be shut down, and that's why they're going
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I was just trying to figure out like how, because that's such a small field.
small,
it's just,
yeah, but that's why they're,
You know.
Kevin wants to go there.
All right, all those in favor of the consent agenda? Okay. Yeah. Okay, Greg. what
Yep.
is- Oh, yeah. Want to do 'em?
No,
You can do 'em. All right.
you're the chair.
I know. So we have two proclamations that we'd like to present to two Maynard citizens tonight. First is Dottie McKean, who was honored at the State House recently as an Unsung Heroine Award during the 2019 Unsung Heroines of Massachusetts celebration on June 18th, 2019, by the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women. And so the Board of Selectmen and the Town of Maynard would like to congratulate Dottie McKeon for this honor in gratitude for her contributions to the Town of Maynard, which are many. And we'd just like to give you this proclamation, this plaque, and congratulate you further on your I'll bring it back, man. You don't even have to come up. We make Jack come up. We make Jack come up. This is for you. Congratulations.
Chris.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, yeah. Taking Becky's place.
Yeah, actually, that was good. She did. Now it's official.
Congratulations. The second proclamation, again, was for the Unsung Heroine Awards for 2019, and it honors Danielle Pimenta, who is a history teacher at Framingham High School and a resident of Maynard, and also is very, very involved and dedicated to the town of Maynard and some of the causes that help us be a better community. So congratulations, Danielle, and we'd like to present you with this plaque. Congratulations. All right. It's yours, Hank. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Danielle.
Thank you both. Thank you
That'd be
both for
great.
coming in on, I think, short notice.
If you think short notice.
I think short notice, yeah. All right. That's the better part of our job, I guess. So item 5 is we're going to interview and appoint Mr. Butler, Christopher J. Butler. So a motion to appoint Christopher J. Butler to the Master Plan Steering Committee for a term that expires December 31st, 2019. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Butler? Because we all got his information. Just to see.
I appreciate that he's, how long have you been on the Conservation Commission? I feel like that was very recent.
December of 2018.
2018, right, so you're just jumping right into everything.
Yeah, going from one to the other, without a break.
It's good.
You also a Marine?
I am.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Quickly, you're getting into...
He wants to rent some space.
And he did work with the Air Force before, so.
Oh, okay.
he's-
I still do, and yes.
Yeah.
You're getting in towards the end of the process, or middle towards the end of the process. Have you been involved in that? If somebody asked that already, I apologize, but...
Oh, no worries. I was at one of the meetings at the golf course in July of 2018. So that was one of the meetings that we had. So I've been following along on the town website, and
Mhm.
I am familiar with the process and everything.
What made you decide to jump into it?
It's the future of Maynard. So.
Okay. That was going to be one of my questions. But, yeah.
Raise your hands.
No, it's all right. I just think that it's an important, project, and I think that's going to be a great roadmap for our town, and I'm hoping you're going to contribute to make this come to a resolution. I'm looking forward to the final result.
Absolutely. I have a
Thank you
3-year-old
for-
and a 1-year-old, and we plan on staying in Maynard
awesome.
for some time. So
Thank you for volunteering.
absolutely.
Who do you coach hockey with in Lexington?
I currently coach with Matt Picarello from Bedford on the junior varsity.
You know Abby Horton? She plays at girls.
Sounds familiar.
She was a goalie. Anyways. But,
How did you make your way from Hawaii to Massachusetts?
That's where I'm from Lexington originally.
Oh, okay.
you're from Lexington?
Yes,
Really? How old are you?
Uh-oh.
25.
That's where he's from.
26 actually. My birthday was just.
I don't know if that's an appropriate question.
It's okay. I don't mind.
You must know some of the McCullough boys.
McCullough's? Yeah, I know McCullough's.
See, that's what happened. That's where he's from.
Jimmy? Yeah, I think it's Jimmy. He's a couple of years younger than me.
But anyway.
Just
so
for that, he's
what-
not
do you
going to
know-
appoint you.
Do you know, do you know how long this is, they're expecting this to go?
Yes,
how
should
much
be
time we have
another,
left?
at least another year, no?
How we doing, Bill, on the
There's
master
no-
plan?
There's no, term limit.
Yeah, I know,
time
really.
limit, right?
I think that,
Well, we have a contract
6
with
more months, maybe?
yeah, I would anticipate a little bit. We're a little bit behind, so I would say probably early 2020 is what
Yeah, that's what I figured. It was another year, I heard.
Yeah.
we spent more time on the infrastructure than we really allotted for it. But I think it's a worthwhile exercise for it. But it's coming together nicely. Board's meeting with the planning board, or the committee's meeting with planning board next week, and scooting along. But I would say 2020 early.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions for Chris Butler? All those in favor? Okay, Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you for volunteering. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Bill will appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, item number 6, the funding of the Maynard Community Fire Station has been withdrawn by the fire chief's request. He wants a little more time to dot his i's and cross his t's, as far as the financial information is concerned.
Would you like to speak more to that, Mr. Chairman?
Pardon me?
No, would you like to?
I don't think we need to speak anymore. It just confuse the issues,
Nope, nope,
I think, but if you wish, you can.
nope, no, that's it.
All right, so there was a change order for a Stantec, and it was a motion to accept, the motion is to accept and approve the contract amendment with Stantec Consulting Services for engineering services for 129 Parker Street, downstream sewer improvements, in the amount of $68,000. Give a second.
Second.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Wayne, can you give a quick overview, maybe?
I was just going to say, does the board have any questions? But in essence, Stantec was our consultant doing the 129 Parker Street downstream sewer improvement project. The contract was extended, and they need some extra money for construction administration and construction observation based on the extension of the contract.
Was any of this covered under the grant at any point?
A lot of it was covered under the grant. The amount that we're requesting now is not. We've expended the grant with the last 2 invoices from the contractor, so the grant is exhausted, and we're now using town funding for the remaining.
And then my other question would be, somewhat sensitively to the other topic that we were talking about earlier, is there any responsibility for this project on the developer?
There is. There's a small percentage. if I remember right, it's a 68-32% split of certain items that were approved in the planning board decision. And rough numbers, we had Stantec kind of do a look ahead to try to see where we were going to be at the end of the project with overall expenditures. And I believe that the town will be putting in around $800,000 of their funds, and the developer will be putting in about $200,000.
But this particular fee I was asking about, that 68,000 is strictly ours? There's not another percentage that's coming from the developer?
Relative to this specific item, no.
And is this pretty much, I realize it's amendment 1, so is this pretty much, I know the project's still kind of ongoing because we still have the paving and everything that's gonna have to happen
Yep.
with that. So, do you anticipate that it's gonna have to go
We
over?
we asked Stantec to kind of look ahead and try to give us a projection, so this would be the only amendment. I can't guarantee that's gonna happen, but I'm hoping that that's gonna happen. Things can change, but we're hoping that they don't.
So I don't want to mix because you're going to do a presentation next in regards to the roads that are being proposed. But here you got saying that Old Marlboro Road will be finished August of 2019, paving-wise. Yep. Am I reading that right? Inspect the upgrade improvements and the finished paving
Those are
activity
for pipes,
schedule.
right?
It says paving activity scheduled.
So Wayne, he's reading off of Stantec's memo on the front page at the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you go to,
Yeah, so the first paragraph, the last sentence says.
yeah,
Yeah. Is that what's gonna happen?
Yes.
So when they do that, I think, Greg, you told me that they'll go back and also do powder mill.
I'd have to double check. Is that,
As far as paving,
Yeah.
all the roads that they did the sewer installation are
Okay.
scheduled to be mill and overlay.
Gotcha.
there you go,
Including some of the potholes that were mentioned. in
I know,
the
that's why I'm bringing that up,
earlier
because, okay.
presentation by the.
Including Waltham Street too?
Correct.
that's a good point.
All right.
And that was, it had to settle first. It all has to settle before they can repave it. So
Yeah.
it's not something that you can just dig it up, put it back and pave it.
We'll take care of some of those potholes that
Okay.
have developed, but in essence, that was the intent, is to let it settle a little bit, so that when they mill and overlay, we didn't have further settlement.
All right, good.
And was all that resurfacing also covered as part of that grant?
It was all included in the contractor's contract. The grant was never gonna cover 100% of the
Yeah.
contract value.
Yeah.
But, so, to answer your question directly, the paving won't be under the grant, because the grant's already expended, and we still have the paving to do. So that'll be coming out of the town fundings.
So the paving is out of Chapter 90 and/or general?
It's out of, yes.
Do we have money aside for that?
Yes, but it's a little complicated. So I was writing a note that we'll follow up with you about how we plan on
Okay.
finishing all that.
And the reason I asked that question is because in the report that's gonna follow,
Yeah.
these streets are not,
That's great. Right.
they're not recommended, so just.
No, because those are already included under the
Oh,
project,
gotcha.
right?
Correct. The money, to answer the question, I'm sorry, Justine, the money, to answer the question that was asked earlier, the town funds that are being used are water and sewer enterprise funds and money from a sewer upgrade article that were previously passed.
Oh, okay.
But that wouldn't be for the paving aspect, would it?
It's going to be for whatever the grant doesn't cover, and in this case, it will include some of the paving.
Probably because you could, in theory, it's the
It's
entire
part of
project,
the whole project.
As
so.
long as it's
So what we did
legal
is we-
use of the
the enterprise.
enterprise
Yeah.
fund revenue.
So we used all of the MassWorks money first, okay? So that covered all of the installation of the sewer work, some ancillary work, and sewer connections and so forth. The paving's the last thing that gets done. So look at that however you want to, but the bottom line is the town funding will be paying for the actual paving. It was all kind of lumped together.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions about this contract amendment? Okay, all those in favor?
Thanks, Wayne.
Wayne?
Sure, you're welcome.
On to the paving plan. 2019-2020 paving plan. There is no motion, it's just a conversation, and then
I add a motion in case you want to consider that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And then if you go to the next one.
Oh, it's on, all right, okay, it's on there. It's not on the copy I have in hand.
Oh. I don't. Do you not have it, Mr. Chairman?
Motion to approve proposed 2019 calendar year paving program.
That's it.
Second.
So,
Okay,
and can I ask a question?
sure you can.
But not to Wayne, but to Greg. I pointed out to you that Tiger Drive is
Oh, yeah.
full of potholes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you went there and you saw that.
Oh, I drive it pretty regularly. I already knew that was true.
It's not on here.
No,
is
it's
that
not.
The reason why it's not recommended to be fixed?
No, that's a good question, and I'd have to recall if I asked Wayne or not. But so he's referring to the drive up into including
School.
Yeah. So can we even use Chapter 90 on school property?
If Tiger Drive is a public way, and I
Right.
can't remember whether it's on the list or not, I'd have to look.
Right.
The answer is yes. If it's not, no.
Right. So we'd have to check if it was even on our list. But either way, it certainly needs to be addressed. I fully
it's
agree.
pretty bad.
It's been years. I mean, I can't imagine. Yes.
And the way I see that is not just us as citizens driving through their
Yeah.
town residents, but you also have visitors that come to the schools. So,
Yes.
whenever there's a play or whatever, they come out of town. So that's kind of embarrassing. So we just want to make sure we get that fixed.
Fully agree. I fully agree. So it's not part of this assessment, which is true, which makes me think maybe it wasn't, because it's literally so bad that I would assume they would probably hit the list. But
But that was going to be my question to Wayne. How
Yeah.
is it that they come up with the list
So
based on priorities?
I tried to, without boring you guys too much, I tried to summarize a little bit of the history of what happened. So we have a consultant that goes through and evaluates all the streets, all right? They've done it twice now, all right? When we initially signed a contract with them and they did a follow-up last year, all right? What they do is, there's something called a PCI, a pavement condition index, and it has to do with the deterioration of the roadway. And in essence, I'll simplify it, in essence, even though some people have a hard time understanding why the worst streets shouldn't be repaved, for the most economic benefit for the town is to maintain the good streets in good condition. So when you get a roadway that is deteriorated to a certain point on a curve, it's a pavement conditioned curve, right? When it gets past a certain point in that curve, it drops off drastically, and past that you can't fix it, and you have to reconstruct the whole roadway. The intent is to keep the surface in as good a condition as you can, and the more you keep the surface in as good a condition you can, the longer the overall road lasts. If the surface degrades, water gets into the substrate, it ruins the substructure and the road fails. So you keep the surface better. So if you have a road that is completely deteriorated, a lot of citizens and board members may say, why aren't we fixing that first? Because that's already failed. We need to fix that for sure. But one that's on the verge of not failing, we're better, and the money is better spent fixing that first, because now you get another 10 or 20 years out of that, where the one that's completely failed is already gone,
All
you
right,
have to reconstruct
So
it.
the way I see that, that's maintenance,
Correct.
okay? And this is repair. So I
That's one way of looking at it,
Okay.
yes.
So I guess the question I would have, sorry.
No, that's-
The question I would have as far as that, and I understand what you're saying, but trying to understand it, if you're constantly putting the roads that have failed aside in
Not
favor of the other,
Yep.
the one where you might get more bang for your buck,
Sure.
per se, when does you fix the failed roads?
And it all really depends on the funds that are available. And it's not like we're putting them aside. Like on this list, Mill Street has failed. All right, and that's on the list to be redone this year. There was another one, Mockingbird, and, sorry, not Mockingbird, Durant.
Durant,
And that, we don't have enough money to do that. So that wasn't on my selected list.
So, and I should know this, but I'm gonna ask anyways. There are different parts of, so like if you drive down Brooks, let's say, and you get to and you make the crossover to Mockingbird, it feels like there are areas of Mockingbird that don't necessarily, that could last a little bit longer. Is there a way to pave the worst parts of the both, as opposed to doing, I'm gonna do this street and that street?
Yep, there is. I mean, no, the way the inventory is done by the consultant is actually by intersection to intersection. So it's certainly, in a lot of the times, in in this list, that doesn't pop up, but a lot of times it is from this street to that street, and it's not the entire street. So we certainly can do that.
I got another follow-up question. So they usually make the recommendations, and then it's up to us, the town, to act upon those recommendations, correct?
That's correct.
So if those recommendations doesn't make any sense to us, is it something that we could change to say, well, and I appreciate your explanation, but to Justine's point, I feel like those ones that have failed need more attention now.
I mean, it's
So-
entirely the board's opinion. This is DPW and Greg's recommendation as to what
Got you.
what we think we should do based on our consultant's
Got you.
analysis, looking at a 10 or 20-year capital improvement plan.
Got you.
You guys could say, we don't agree with that, we'd rather do this one, and that's fine.
So, the one other thing on the documents, the proposed roadway projects list, you have, so I'm looking at both that, the total of that plus the memo that you kind of summed up for us.
Mhm.
And on and I know you you obviously rounded up for a lot of it,
Yep.
but the estimated recommendation that you gave was for $832,000. And the preliminary was $823,000. So I'm wondering if we do we have that, I mean, it's not a lot of money, but that $9,000 buffer there.
Actually, just to clarify,
Am I misreading that?
No, you're not, that's correct.
that's true, but his ultimate estimation is actually only $571,000.
If you take, yeah, sorry, I'm talking about like the total.
Yep.
Total project.
No,
Okay.
so I rounded to your first statement, I rounded up, okay?
Yeah, all right.
These numbers are approximate,
Yeah.
okay? The industry is flooded right now. My guess, unfortunately, is these numbers are gonna come in higher than what we've estimated. And we're gonna be able to do less than what we think we can.
Okay.
So,
Do you know, have we gone out to bid? That was actually the email that I sent you earlier.
And I forwarded to him.
these have not been bid yet.
They have
We
not.
don't have any more data right now, other than what Beta provided us.
Okay, all right. Are we planning on going up?
Yeah, so if you look at the last sentence in
It
my
says that, right?
memo,
Yeah,
is
sorry.
that
It does.
as soon as you guys approve the plan,
That's exactly.
we're gonna advertise this, and it's gonna be a street-by-street basis, and we can select, kinda like a Chinese menu, on what we wanna do based on the available funding that we have and the bid prices.
And we can come back to the board with that information as well.
And the other, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And the other thing, because we had some concerned citizens that showed up from Fletcher Street,
Mhm.
and that's something that I don't see that on here either. Is that reason again for your explanation, how that,
It's the same reason, it's just
I
it
think-
didn't make it this year.
Fletcher's a private road too. Fletcher's not an accepted way,
oh, okay,
so I think that adds a whole other
all right.
issue.
My comment is, when your explanation is consistent with what we were told 3, 4, 5 years ago, whenever it was, when they first came in, did the full-blown presentation.
That's right.
And I'm confident that, when we develop a plan and the professionals work the plan, that the plan should be continued and not disrupted because somebody's favorite street might not be, and I'm not saying that derogatorily, someone's favorite street might not be on that list. You've got to stick with a plan, because otherwise you start screwing with the plan, and things go awry. So,
Yeah, but
the
the plan, I understand that, but sometimes the plan may not make sense. I'm just, just making a point, and how are we gonna fix the roads that are so-called, disrepair?
Well, here's the issue with our roads, is that now we had someone come in tonight and say, do my road in front of my business.
Right.
So, do we do that, or do we do Fletcher, or do we stick to the plan? And then, you've got other roads that are in.
Oh, that question was answered already, because they're gonna, when they do
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, in general terms, that's just what happens.
Right.
This one, it's that one, sorry, in my space.
Sorry.
But this does not preclude the guys on the DPW and the Highway Department from going to streets like Fletcher, going to streets like Powder Mill, and doing the other things and fixing potholes on a daily basis where there's a need.
That's correct.
If a hole opens up on Fletcher or Assabet or a lane, the roads that we heard about a couple weeks ago, those needs are met
That's right.
by the means that we typically fix a pothole.
Yeah, they're
So
constantly.
this doesn't mean that nobody from the DPW or town hall is gonna look at Fletcher or those others. This just means
No, I understand.
this is the plan we're following, have been following,
Well-
but all the way along, there's also a group of people daily out
Okay, so,
repairing those
so
places
to
that
your,
need repair.
to your point, and I know that we're shorthanded.
Right.
Why is it the potholes are not then filled, like on Tiger Drive?
We can get to it, but so to your point, we only have so many resources.
Oh, I know.
I know it sounds like the simple answer, but it is the fact is that we only have so many personnel and we only have so much money. So
I made that comment earlier.
I know, and I know it sounds like generic and it's not easy, but that is the truth. So when I go to the when I'm able to go to the foreman meetings and they say, we're going to try to get to this, we got an email from this person, we got a phone call from this person, and then they try to address those as quickly as possible. It is, and I think they're doing a good job considering, like they're all lacking a DPW director, but even if that person was in place, it would be the same thing. They're very reactive. They try to get there as quickly as possible. It's just a matter of time and resources. So we are, if anything, Ms. Miranda's here. She can attest that they try to keep a track. They try to be good listeners at a minimum. But we're a small town, so we have heavy demands on infrastructure.
And I think it's important that residents be the eyes, literally in this case, for the DPW and for town hall, because they can't see everything. And I see on some public social media, I see posts about, there's a sinkhole on such and such a street. Well, report it if it hasn't been reported already, because nobody will know about it if it hasn't been reported. And so for people watching or whatever, that's important. That's all part of living in a small town. It's being part of the team and letting the town know that we've got these concerns. 'Cause they'll go out. The guys are responsive. To Greg's point, they're going to get out there and do it when they know it exists. They don't know it's there, and they'll say that I've seen, they just put a cone out. Well, yeah, because they might not be able to get to it right away, but public safety is number one, and if you can cover up a hole, good, we'll get to it. So
Part of the problem with a cone is, the reason for the cone is if pothole shows itself at a certain amount of time, or something drops in at a certain amount of time at night, or a certain time at night, it's not that our guys can't go out and fix it, it's that the product isn't available to purchase to fix the hole.
That's a good point that the chairman is
You
making.
there's all these different factors. There's weather. Our spring and early summer, as far as rain and water levels and everything else, nothing is recovered from that yet. And then you have, the fact that, hey, if I call and I have a pothole on my street and it's 7 o'clock at night, they're gonna come and put a cone out because they can't go buy the patch till the next day because we don't stock it.
So ideally, it's probably worth talking about this for 1 second. So the process is, we have coal patch in stock, all right? They can go patch a hole with coal patch, but the problem is it doesn't last very long.
All right.
Even if they
Once
come
you get a
back,
heavy rain, that's gonna open up again.
even just from traveling
back,
right?
yeah.
It wears down. So ideally, what they do is they get a list every week of maybe, let's say there's 10 potholes that have identified. They try to cone them off. Maybe they put some patch. They'll get a batch of hot mix, a ton of soda hot mix. They have a hot box. They keep it in. They tow it around with the truck, and they hit all of those at once. And they try to clean them up, saw cut them if they need to, and they try to patch it the right way so it'll last, 5 or 10 times longer than the coal patch. That's the ideal process. And to Chris's point, they can't get coal patch in the middle of the night, and it's honestly, it's not prudent for us to get it every day. So they get it once a week, every 2 weeks, whenever they have the time and the forces to do it, and they try to hit multiple locations to try to address all those bad spots. The average citizen probably doesn't understand that. Why aren't you there with hot mix?
I didn't
at
understand
9
it until
o'clock
you
at
explained it. So how's that?
Yeah, no, it's tough, but they do get,
Every day.
a lot, and they keep a track, and then in the mornings they go through and they say we do this, but
You know why I know it's every day? Because I know people that work over there want to know, why is
true.
there ain't a truck over here every day?
it's true, it's true, it's true.
Everybody's watching.
Yep.
Why is the man a truck in this town? I'm like, I don't know. Ask the driver next time. But, I'm satisfied with the explanations. I don't know if there's a. Oh, please, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more question. If you had forwarded it to Wayne or not, is the current, or maybe Marino's, the amount that's owed to Detour?
Yep.
When we approved that last year, I thought that we approved it with FY. I didn't realize that we don't have the money, you know what I'm saying?
All right, so FY19, we did Summer Street sidewalks with
Right.
the money
Yeah.
from, that's continuing right now because the loom and the walkways are not finished yet. That we're still paying out of that money. The money for Great Road sidewalks
Yeah.
are coming out of fiscal '20 because we did not have enough to do both. When they went to do the sidewalks, we didn't have enough, so we already had signed the contract with Detour to do both roads, sidewalks.
Okay.
And now we're gonna do the Great Road part of the sidewalks. And they're coming in August, I believe, or early September.
I was under the impression we had the money for all of it, but, okay.
No, well, maybe we did but not knowing the
The other extras that went with
summer.
it.
We've been on the summer longer than I think any of us would like to be on summer.
Yeah. We got half of it, more than half of it loomed, I believe, was the comments this morning at the meeting. They're gonna do the second half, starting the end of the weekend, but it's gonna rain, so
Right.
we won't be able to do that. So we're trying to get off of summer, but we're
Now, is
just,
Detour doing this stuff, or is it our guys?
no,
doing
it's
it?
our guys.
Okay.
It's our guys finishing it.
Yeah.
So it's a, and that's in between everything else that we're doing. And 4 guys can't, it's tough.
But those sidewalks make a difference.
Yeah, they do.
They just came out really, really nice.
All the unhappy people that can't park on the side of their house.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, they can't park there.
Yeah.
More parking on Summer Street. Heard that. All right, does anybody have any other questions or comments to make about the paving plan? I just have one, it comes to mind. Can you send us the complete list
Of course.
of all the streets that were graded and rated and all
Yep.
that stuff, so we can just kind of
We have a
peruse at some
report.
point?
It was
Got a new one.
updated last
Yeah,
year.
and then if we,
Yeah, end of 2018.
yeah, so then if we want to revisit, it at a later date, we revisit it at a later date, but
Good idea.
I'll send it to Greg in the morning.
Just to be clear, these guys, the guys who do this, they literally, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the way I remember when they described it. They literally drive around town with some type of thing that either written or on the dashboard that
Potentially
records
both.
their trips.
Yep.
And they see each and every road, and through scientific calculations, they determine what grade to give that particular road.
You're
And then
exactly
they,
right.
yeah,
Yep, that's right.
there's a method to the madness.
There really is. And it's kind of a science. I mean, it may sound like just pavement and just roadways, but it is kind of, it's complicated.
okay.
So we're just approving.
Yeah, we're just checking to see if.
You're giving your consent, but
Give our
then
consent
Okay.
for the plan as
As
presented,
presented.
yeah.
but the contracts will come later, and then they're all well above. Yeah, so you'll have to approve ultimately the contracts.
Yeah. Well, basically, we're going out for bids.
So they need
That's
to
correct.
know,
That's what
they
we're
need to know
approving.
what to advertise is going to
Right.
be on there.
Correct.
Based on the available funding and the bid prices, we'll come to you guys with a list, and you'll end up having to sign that contract.
Correct.
Will you, I'm sorry, and you did say this, but I didn't catch what you said. When you go out to bid, are you going out to bid for a certain, are you going out to bid, will you go out to bid per street, or will you go out to bid per?
It'll be the group of streets, but we're gonna ask for breakdown by street,
Okay,
so that we can choose.
Now, I notice these are listed alphabetically, and the only reason I ask this question is for people who ask, oh, geez, my street on the list. Acton Street is first on the
Yeah,
list.
I think it's just coincidental.
Okay. Do you have them specifically prioritized? Which one of these?
Honestly, it'll probably be based on
On the
how
bid.
much the price is per street.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to get as much as we can done. If there's some, let's say we're off by $100,000, we don't wanna do, to Justine's comment earlier, we don't wanna do 3/4 of the street.
Yep.
We'd rather do the whole thing.
Yep.
So we may just
It may have to be
eliminate one
put
that
off to
happens
the
to be
next- yep, okay.
$100,000.
So these are the top 5 per se, like
Correct.
whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Marie.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
Marie.
End of the year budget transfers. Someone,
Oh no, it's
this is school first.
school side.
we gonna do motion 2 first?
evening.
Hi there.
Would you guys use this room last Thursday?
We did.
What happened to my gavel? Oh, where did this come from?
Honestly, we probably took it.
Yes. So,
So
thank
you
you,
got
Mr.
a
Chairman.
mallet instead, that's a mallet.
That was good.
Bring it back.
That was good comedic timing. So, yes.
Did you?
Put it in the bags.
Yep.
Good Lord. I came in here tonight.
Thank
I came here tonight.
So that I took from down. That's Kyle's from downstairs.
That's funny.
Ken has two.
Sorry.
Ken gets two. I've seen two on your desk.
All right, so now we know. Truth is out.
If you don't want to use that,
I'm
Mr.
not
Chairman,
saying
then-
officially we took it, but I do remember grabbing one.
That's what I think happened.
And I remember at the beginning telling Colleen, no, we don't need ours because
There was
There's
one,
one.
yeah.
All right, so we'll find Colleen.
Yeah.
Get.
Gotta get the
I
right
actually
one.
think it was
I
me.
will be sicking Becky on you Monday.
Oh, well, we're gonna try to find it before Becky comes back.
All right, okay. So, there's a motion to accept the reserve fund transfer request in the amount of $63,180.21 submitted by the school department for activities related to remediation of Green Meadow School. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we have this.
I have a question about the
Hmm?
utilities one,
How do you do it?
the $40,085. It's
not from them.
That's not
Oh.
from them? Oh, okay.
I'm like, wait, what?
You signed it.
I know. He made me. No.
I don't
All right,
have
I'll
a
send
bar.
you that.
That's a different one. No, it's a different one. We do that next, but
Okay, I'm sorry
it's
then.
a different one.
That was it.
What the heck I gave
Well,
you?
there's school utilities related from the school. So like for the $40,000, is that what you're referring
Right,
to?
that's what I was, yeah.
That's not part of Green Meadow.
Right, no, I know that, but I figured they were
I will
schools.
explain.
Yeah, I was, when we get to that one, we're still on the $63,000 one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're still in the 63. What, with the 63, does that bring us to 576,
Should be, right?
90620? Or is it another number?
No.
There should be no other number, right? This is the
It
final.
wasn't 576 with the 63. Where did you?
I'm looking at the bottom line at the end of the report. Green Meadow Project. I could be looking at the wrong thing, that's why I was asking.
The bottom of my report?
The bottom of the only report we got attached.
Oh, that's with the encumbered. Sorry. The expended amount is the 519,245.71. So the encumbered amount is that fourth transfer, and that actually, when this was done, that actually has risen.
Okay.
So the three transfers that we have done, well, with this being the third one, equals the 519,
Oh, 590.
519,245.71.
So I was just in the wrong column.
Yeah, I'm looking at 571 also.
Do you have all the numbers yet for the fourth? I know we're gonna present it to FinCom, but I just wasn't sure.
Right. Tomorrow Mike's coming over. We're gonna finish that. I don't officially have I'm still waiting for the fire company alarm system quote. Bill came by my office today, but I was in interviews all day.
Bill
today.
Goddard, by the way.
Bill Goddard, sorry, yeah.
No, no.
I don't know if he has that yet, but that's the only piece, that, and I'm still waiting on the remainder of the pods, amount. Now, and I've talked to him, the pods have been picked up. You know,
Maybe it's free.
yeah, that would be awesome if it was free, but
I got a question. Wasn't the total amount 610?
it is,
Okay.
yeah. And we are at,
There.
we're at 609,
Okay.
something with so since this was done a couple of weeks ago, and since then, we had gotten a quote from the electrical company, and that was much higher than what we had expected, and that was because of when the wiring inspector and the building inspector came in, because of the amount of construction or deconstruction that we were required to do, it brought us to a different level of what we have to now for
bringing us to code do than we originally had thought.
If I watched the meeting the other night on television, and the way I understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, and the reason I guess I'm a little bit confused is because the other reserve fund transfer request is very similar in number to the number that you were commenting on about the Green Meadow one. I thought you had said that you had allocated within the Green Meadow remediation plan $5,000.
Correct.
And then the number was like $40,000.
43,000.
And so I was confused because when I heard that night, I was sitting at home saying, is this putting us over the number? And I think Brian was in the back of the room and may have asked, is this putting us over the 610? And you said no.
No.
Then I saw this $40,000 reserve fund transfer that's in front of us tonight that we haven't gotten to yet on electrical issues.
Mhm.
And it's electrical, so I was like, wait a minute, is this the same project coming out?
No.
And that's why I was a bit confused, because the numbers were very, very similar.
Yeah, they are. So it's, let me just get this out of here. So the electrical came in at,
And this is the Green Meadow now.
this is Green Meadow. The other,
We'll get to that.
is with Mike. It's not really with me, so.
There's 43,
It's 43,600, for the, electrical. I also, when I did the, priority fire one, I had doubled what it cost us to remove everything, because originally that's what they had said it was going to be. But again, because of us having to bring things up to code now, and we're not grandfathered in anymore because of the amount that we had to take down, I've had to double that double. So now that's around $10,000 is what they told me, but I still have not gotten the official quote back from them, and I'm waiting on that at the moment. But that's in there for 10,000. If it comes in over 10,000, then that's a discussion that we're going to have because with these additional costs, we are now at 609,000. In I don't know, I can't remember the exact amount, but 609,500. Like we have like about $500 to spare at this point. Then I did, there was one purchase order that the Finance Committee had actually questioned, and I was waiting for an answer back, and I did get an answer that actually is not needed, so that's about $3,000 we're unencumbering, basically. So, you know, we're at like the 606 range. So I don't know if I was supposed to bring it up or not. So with the fourth reserve fund, where timing-wise, I think I'm remembering this correctly, is that you guys are going to present to FinCom, but there's not going to be a time for us to approve it. So they're just basically telling us now that there's going to be one. Right, and I believe I would be sending it to you for you to see. You just wouldn't be voting on it, but you would have the backup documentation, like these packets that I prepared.
That raises a question for me. What are the legalities relative to the obligation of the executive board to, and I know we have no real authority to approve a reserve fund transfer.
Right.
That's
Are you
all
required
with
to
the
accept
Finance
it?
Committee.
Right.
But I believe that there is a legality or legal requirement, I may be wrong,
Yeah.
for the executive body to acknowledge that a reserve fund transfer has been made. And therefore, that document should be in front of the executive board in order to make that acknowledgement. Without it, I'm just concerned that somebody could raise a legal concern relative to the payment of, or the approval by the Finance Committee.
All right, so good question. That is not my understanding. We can definitely verify that, but maybe Mike can speak to it. So my understanding is
that if we waited until after
I get the
that's
timing.
not what he's saying.
I get the timing.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is the legality aspect of saying, oh, because of timing, we're going to just skip the law.
There's no requirement for the Board of Selectmen to review it or approve it.
And that's
All it is a department head signs off on it, a department signs off on it, which would be the chair of the school committee, and the finance committee then votes on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that answers the question.
No,
Thank you.
I had the same concern.
We could always include it in the next meeting just to.
Right, that's what
But it would already have been, it would already
will
have
have
been
it.
done.
it'll be as
But
correspondence.
it'll be that we saw it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one thing that I think it came up in the past, and I'm sure, David, you probably gonna agree with that. I had a trouble with approving $10,000 for the website. That had nothing to do with the mitigation. So I was hoping that you guys go back to the drawing board and find that $10,000 somehow in your budget, but that didn't work out, I guess, because someone did make that point at one time, I think, in one of the meetings, saying that we're gonna be able to see if we could find that somewhere. Because I have trouble with that. Approving $10,000 for a website has nothing to do with the mitigation. So, it's just me.
Oh, it's not just you.
Oh,
I-
okay, it's just you two.
I expressed it at the time that we had that first.
All right. But that was just my opinion right now.
I get it.
Any other questions about this transfer? Of $63,180.21. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you both
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for coming in.
So the
So
next
we get
one,
to see you
what's,
after
the next one we
after,
don't-
like, September, you can just come back and visit.
Do we need to do the electrical one
Say
too?
hi, you know, hang out.
Yeah, Mike's coming right up for that.
Oh, Mike's gonna do
yeah,
that.
Mike, yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm
who's
gonna
next?
explain to you how it's so.
Yeah,
All
you
right,
have enough,
motion,
you have enough files there?
Oh, yeah.
number
Yeah,
one.
well, this is, I'm gonna be here for the next one, that's why.
All right, number one is a motion to accept the reserve fund request in the amount of $40,085 submitted by the school department for activities related to the utilities / Washington Gas. The school share represents 35% of the invoice. Happened, Mike.
Okay, basically what happened is about approximately 6 days before the close, we get an email and phone call from Washington Gas saying they did an audit and there's $114,526.13 of unpaid bills. Do I believe, at this point in time, if you would ask me, am I 100% positive that this is correct and that it should be that amount? The answer is no. We have planned to do, after this process, is, assuming it gets approved, to go back to Washington Gas. We're gonna do a complete audit, and if it turns out that any or part of this was incorrect, we will have a credit issued. The problem we have is that if we chose, most of this has been covered within the town's budget except for the school piece. The choice we had was to not do anything with it at all. It would become a prior year bill. You would have to find funding for it for free cash, and would probably most likely be in May. So the choice was made to pay the bill, spend in terms of entirety, and then we would do the research between now, Kevin and I, between now and December, and we would come back to you at some point and say, to make sure this is not gonna happen again, yes, we went through it, we found out that it is correct, or we come back and we find out, well, it's not 114, it's only 64, then we will get a credit in FY '20. So I can't sit here and tell you with 100% certainty, as a result of the audit, that this number is correct, but we will know within the next 6 months. But the choice is, do you wanna wait until May and do it as a prior year, and then we're gonna have to wait and then do it
No.
that way?
Is Washington Gas the company that just took over the
Yes,
solar
it's
fields?
part of the problem, it's, with our solar. So basically, when they did it, they did an audit and found out they hadn't billed us for this, and they decided and she gave it to us like 4 days before the end of the year. And then she says, well, I said, no, I said, if you don't send me all the information now, she was only gonna do half of it. I said, you're not gonna get paid until next May, and then so the decision was made in discussion with Greg is, let's pay for it now, and then we'll do the research and come back to the board and say with certainty that the 114 is correct, or it's not correct, and we also wanna make sure this is not gonna happen again. I can't guarantee, I'm not gonna sit here and guarantee that this is 100% correct. I don't know. We've done some preliminary work on it, and what we found so far it is, but we haven't completed it. The issue with the 40,000 though, is we were able to cover all of the 114 through the town's budget and enterprise funds. The school, this is a totally independent from Green Meadow and everything. So the decision we made, we talked about it, was to say, let's do a reserve fund using the remainder of our piece, and then we'll do all the research. I wish I can tell you, like I said, 100% certainty that this is, you know, correct, but I'm not gonna tell you that.
Do they bill us like a regular?
Yeah, they do, but
household
this is a new
customer
company that took
monthly?
over.
Do they do it on a monthly basis?
Yeah.
Did we ever see a
No,
indication?
that's why this is a new company that took over, and a lot of the blue.
But we never saw even like a drop in usage or an increase in usage or whatever that would suggest that
No.
that
We
their
compared
numbers.
it to what we had, it looked basically normal. That's why it sort of seemed unusual, but we don't know for certain what really caused it, other than they said they did an audit. Now,
Do they bill us by building?
yeah, they do.
Because I see how you've broken it down by building, but I just don't know if that's the percentage of the overall usage that.
Well, the percentage is based upon what we've come up with. We've already changed it 3 different times. This is the third, where we had more of it was going to the town versus the school. So this is what the percentage is now of how we split the bill. And it is done on that, so
What period of time does this cover?
last 4 months, I think they said 6 months. They did an audit and went back and said, we never bill you for it.
When did they take over? Weren't we gonna talk to them? I feel like there was something that we were gonna talk to them about.
When did WGL take over?
Yeah. I tried to look quickly in the meeting.
I don't remember.
But, you know, by the time, we will come back to the board and as to say, this was incorrect, we're getting a credit. But I can't say, in terms of time, that's the restriction I have. The alternative is not to do anything at all and just wait until May, and then we're gonna use free cash to do it. Whereas we can afford it now and we can always get a credit from them. Do I personally believe, if you ask me my personal opinion, I think there's some issues in going through it on some of them, so.
And how will you be able to audit this yourself? Because, you know,
We're gonna get all the paperwork from
you
them.
look at the meter number that's on
Right,
the left,
exactly
the meter
what we're
number that's
gonna
on
do.
the right, and
Right, so what we're gonna do is go back and look at everything that we've gotten so far, we're gonna look at what they gave us, and if there's discrepancies, we're gonna go back to them and say, well, you said you didn't bill us for it, but how can you all, it doesn't look like, if you go over the last 2 or 3 years, how do we all of a sudden, do you say that we owe you this money when in effect, going along? I think part of it has to do with the takeover. I think when they did it, there may be an issue, but I can't say that with certainty. I would much rather, have the time to, in the next 6 months to go through this in complete detail. And Kevin and I are gonna go through literally every invoice that we've received. And we're gonna check it and compare it and see what we come up with.
So there was a memo in our April 16th, under correspondences, I think that's what I was referencing. That was a notice of affiliate assignment and release, and it was made, the reference is made to that certain net metering power sales agreement.
It's certain, different.
And I think we were talking about wanting to hear more about it, but I don't know so
We're
I don't know
following
if it's
up on
related
that
at
too.
all. but-
No, we're gonna follow up with that one too, because we may end up, as a result of this individual, actually, assuming this is correct, we'll probably end up getting more credits or the way he was looking at it. So that's another item that I have on my list with other things to
You're really
look
short
at
list
that.
of things to do?
Do you know what the total they should have billed,
That's what we're going through
Rockland
now.
Ave is?
That's what we're trying to do,
What's
is
the total
compare
they
it.
should have, what's the total that they should have billed Rockland Ave? Do you know? Do you have it broken down by,
For Rockland Ave, I have down here, they're saying that it should have been additional $34,357.
just for Rockland Ave? How does somebody not notice it? They're not paying the electric bill or the gas bill for Rockland
That's
Ave.
what I mean, this is why we have to go back and research it. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you,
No,
we still have a lot of research to do. And
We
literally-
appreciate you looking into it.
Yeah, I mean, we're literally gonna
No,
go
it's
through
nothing-
every invoice for a whole year. We're gonna compare it to what we've had in the past. And if it really looks outrageous, you know, I'm gonna turn around and, and when it comes to the next bill, just say, hey, guess what?
Okay.
You know,
Do you know who seconded this motion?
Oh, it's under A.
Been talking so long, we forgot.
I didn't write it down, that's why.
I don't have it.
Second.
Okay, Justine did.
Sorry.
All right. You know, okay. A lot of auditing you're doing these days.
That's
Anybody
why-
else have any questions
That's why he's
regarding
got a
this
calculator.
$40,085?
this for the next one.
All those in favor?
So since you got something else, go ahead.
Excuse me?
No, I'm saying, go ahead.
It's here for the next item too.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so
okay, the
do
next
that
one.
first, and then I'll have a
The
question.
next one is a motion to accept the transfers between or within departments for the town of Maynard as shown. Do a second.
Second.
What this is, for anybody who's new, is that under the Municipal Modernization Act, it used to be you could do budget transfers for a period of time from May through July 15th, and for shortfalls or whatever. But with the new Modernization Act, they eliminated limits like 3%, you could use health insurance if you had extra money. This is something that hasn't changed other than, you know, you have a luxury. What allows us to do this is basically how we do the budget. If we had done the budget and gone to town meeting and you had approved it department by department, instead of using budget transfers, you would have to do one of two things. You would get more reserve funds, or you would have to go to town meeting to make the transfer, which is what we did in the past. But the fact that we now do the budget and it's approved by function, what that means is that it allows us to run a deficit at a certain point in time, as long as in total the bottom line is not negative. So basically what we do is, for the most part, a lot of these do not occur until usually May or June. So, because I monitor this on a monthly basis. So what this really is to say, is with those areas where there are deficits, where you don't have, let's say you have a deficit in expenses, but you have an excess in salary. The problem with that is they may have encumbrances that they would need to do that we already know about. So in order to be able to even it out and to allow for those things, that's what the budget transfers do, and we try to take it from different departments. In the past, the ranges. Some years, this is probably, last year we had only 84. The year before, it was like 180. The year before was like 100-something, so it varies. It's the fact that we're able to do it versus doing reserve funds or having to go to town meeting to do this is something that, allows us to do it that way. And I do, and it's, usually if there's something that we catch beforehand, we wouldn't do it as a budget transfer. We would probably come to you with a reserve fund to do it versus doing a budget transfer and waiting, especially if I know, for instance, that by doing it the way we're doing, we're gonna run a deficit, I would make sure that it didn't happen before May. But we have the luxury of being able to do it. It's a lot of work because some of the items that you see here are based upon a point in time, and I do know that some of the items have come in, they're being processed as 19 into 20, so we've had to make sure that we have encumbrances to cover it. So that's why some of them look kind of strange. Like for instance, if you were the Treasury, because of her leaving, she chose to do it a certain way, so we have a sick leave buyback and vacation. And plus the fact I thought Cheryl was leaving in June. So when we did the budget, I reduced the salary, so things like that. Good thing she's not here. So.
Crack you in the head. All right, do you have any questions about this item in particular? About the items?
I just want to make a comment that it's very high, or it's higher than it's been. It's higher than it's been in the past.
Yes. Well, yes, it has, yeah.
And I don't know if
A
that's
lot of it
because
has to do with, the VHB, that's 53,000 of it, right there. And then we also had, on top of that, if you just say, if that didn't exist and we didn't have a situation, it would be $53,000 less. Then you have a situation with the police, we were able to get extra in terms of salary, but it ends up, there's an item that he's encumbering for 16,000, but the line is in deficit to 12,000, so in order to cover it and be able to encumber it, there's that. So if we didn't have those two alone, that's basically amounts to something like 81,000 of that, and basically, then it would be a normal thing.
Is the health insurance that's on here unexpected?
That you would,
The 111,480?
that's
No,
what-
we're taking it
That's what he was
from,
just
That's
talking
what you're taking it from.
because we had a savings from there.
Yeah, okay.
Because part of it is when you do the budget, you're doing a budget based upon what you think June is gonna be, so we ended up saving money
Yeah.
in terms of that. We're finally catching up and stuff, plus we had, what ended up happening is on the unemployment, people left. So we ended up paying the unemployment, but we ended up saving, which we didn't know at the time, and when we did the budget for last year, so we ended up saving like 5. in total. So we ended up basically to the good. That's basically what that represents.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? All those in favor?
So I got a question, I guess, comment question. Greg, I think I reached out to you after speaking to Chris in regards to the monthly reporting, budget reporting.
Yes.
Is that something that you're comfortable doing with us
Well,
on a monthly
we
basis?
discussed it, and I have copies.
Oh, you did, okay.
I have it addressed in my town administrator report.
Right.
Oh, good, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, it's okay. I just.
Got you, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to wait until then, and then we can discuss it then.
Well, we can.
We could do that.
Wanna do that?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. We're good.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Not finished yet.
He's not why are you not finished? Yes, you are.
No, but we have the other issue with,
But that's, he's gotta wait until.
It's going back. It's going to Megan and these two gentlemen.
Take a back seat for a little bit.
Yeah.
Megan and these guys have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you know, the town of Maynard is in negotiations with NewCan to negotiate a host community agreement. And our council and NewCan's council have been going back and forth, looking at the HCA. And there are a few items that we thought we should bring to the board for input. Just so you know, Attorney Fedoroff will be coming to the August 6th meeting. We're scheduling to have her come to discuss a few other things regarding cannabis in Maynard. But in order, an effort to move this along, there were a few things that came up, so we thought we would discuss it with you. But I just want to let you know if there are questions that you have for Attorney Fedoroff, she'll be in next month. So if we can't answer them today, we can't move forward. So I thought I attached a memo to the board docs. I thought we could kind of go through them. So number 1 is the location of a marijuana retailer. So for the past 2 host community agreements, this has not come up because the other 2 retailers had locations in mind at the time of negotiating the HCA. Technically, we can execute an HCA without a location, but we can also ask that the applicant include a location. My understanding in speaking with Attorney Fedoroff is that a retailer does need to submit the address of a location at the time of applying to the Cannabis Control Commission with the state. So I just wanted to let you know that, and we can kind of discuss if the board would rather have a location identified in this document or if they're comfortable adding it in at a later time when it's been decided. I don't know if you want to talk through each one, Mr. Chair, or however you'd like.
Go through them one at a time.
Okay, great.
I'm definitely in favor of making sure it's in the agreement, the location. That's just.
I mean, it has to be on there before it goes to the
Right, so it's only right that we see it too.
Cannabis Control Commission anyway.
Do you mind if we?
You have to ask him.
I don't, yeah, go ahead. I don't see what the,
Our
Introduce
intention
yourselves,
is,
gentlemen. Introduce yourselves.
yes, David Rabinovitz. Our intention is not to not disclose the location. Our intention is to get the host community agreement set, get the location, come back and get the special use permit, and then have the special use permit appended to the document. So you will know the location, you're gonna approve the location, we're gonna go through all the steps, but we'll have the general terms of what the deal is with the host community ironed out and signed before we're going out and dealing with the landlords.
okay.
So how come the other two did that before they?
Because they already had the location in mind. Wellspring already had a lease, and Green Star was already in negotiation with, I forget the address, but it's the one off Main Street. So they were already well in hand, and so it wouldn't even have occurred to me to ask, like, are we allowed to tell them where they actually ought to go?
And one of the things that I hope that you guys do as you look for a location is to keep in mind what was brought up at last time.
We have. After the last meeting, we drove down every major road. We drove down to the Acton line and wrote down every piece of real estate, ran down every lead. We drove that way down Main Street.
To Stowe.
To Stowe, and then
Sudbury,
up to.
and then to Concord.
Okay.
And called every landlord. So we went through and spoke to everybody we could possibly, any stone that we could unturn, we turned it over on that. We took that to heart.
In the margin, it says, Megan was asking, it says, Maynard has informed my client that they would enter into an HCA prior to the identification of the property, and that it would amend as soon as practical after securing the target property. Who would Maynard inform them of that?
I think it could have been informal conversations with me, and I made it very clear that I am not the authority on this, and I work closely with council, but I wasn't sure at the time if we did need a location specified, and I had since confirmed that the board has the authority to include a location, and that's why we brought it up today, Mr. Chair.
Don't we require it for a liquor license?
I believe we do,
Start that process?
for the license.
Require location?
Yeah.
We probably do, but I
We
don't know if
definitely
the.
do. We definitely
Yeah.
require, for certain liquor licenses, like the outline, the diagram of what the place is gonna look like inside, like.
Yeah, like the common victual license, you have to
Yeah.
give the layout.
We're not looking to circumvent any of that.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
It really has to do with leverage with the landlord.
Now, my question, not for you guys per se, this is just for a general conversation. Does the location at any time impact what we might look for in a host agreement? In other words, there might be some more mitigation per se that we would be interested in getting because of a particular location than we otherwise might want in another one. And under those circumstances, knowing the location before we finalize an agreement, I would think would be important to us, because we don't want to be hit with, oh boy, we didn't think about that, they should be taking care of that, whatever it happens to be.
That's a good point.
But that has to be countered with, are we in any way hindering an opportunity of a business owner to proceed by requiring them to have their address identified? It seems to me that this early in this process with this new industry, that the conservative side is the way to go on most of these things, that we be as careful as possible. The community's interested in knowing what they need to know, wanting to know where these places are going to be, and have an opportunity to at least have that understanding. So I tend to lean towards requiring it to be there, at least for the time being. And if we have more of these come down the road, perhaps you know, it becomes more commonplace to us and more comfortable to us. But right now, I think there's a lot of angst among the community members relative to this industry, not because of what it's selling. That's not the issue. It's just how does it impact the community as a whole.
So, can I ask a quick question? Are you guys concerned that you don't want to get the space because we're not going to approve the okay.
It's a whole host of issues,
host
things
of-
like
oh,
that, but there's a lot of issues. There are issues with landlords that I had, we in another community, we had a landlord say to us flat out, you can't get your application in until you have a deal with a landlord. Therefore, you'll pay me $10,000 up front if you want this thing signed. And that's not isolated. I could rattle off, I work with economic empowerment applicants. One of the reasons in Massachusetts most of the economic empowerment applicants haven't been able to get licenses is because this particular stage they can't get past. Landlords throughout the Commonwealth are looking at the cannabis industry like we can hold these guys over a barrel, because if they need us to get in front of the city council, the mayor, or the board of selectmen, then they will pay a premium. And in another community, not far from here, space was advertised $14 to $17 a foot.
As soon as they heard that you guys are coming, it went up in price.
Not only did they go up, the broker called back and said, I think you need to increase your offer to $25 a foot. I said, why? They haven't even responded to us yet. And she said, I think in order to get them to respond, you need to go from 14 to 25. And I can rattle off firm examples of that. So we've been, and we're going down the same road with another community, similar size, and we're doing the same thing. We're getting the host community agreement first, which is basically the town saying, you accept us as operators, we've agreed to the top end on the community impact, right? If you look at what the law allows, we're at the high end of it, so we're not looking to compress that in any way. But with that agreement in place, it puts us in a better shape in finding a location and negotiating with the landlord. Because I've had landlords say, well, you don't have an agreement. You need to start paying us right away. We don't know that you're going to get an agreement. So that's all we're looking to overcome. We're not looking to make an end run around anything. The agreement will state clearly that once we get the location, we have to come back, get the location approved, get the special use permit, so you'll see the location, architectural plans, everything about it. And there will be those opportunities, if there's anything that's amiss, to address it at that point. This is more, we want to get the business deal between us and the community finalized.
You had mentioned in the past that you might be thinking also of purchasing, so I guess that's out of the question right now.
No, not yet.
No, not yet.
Because you keep talking about landlords, so I'm thinking that's
Well,
what you're looking at.
we've looked at a few locations, and then based on your comment from the last meeting, we then went out and looked at a lot more locations. Some are for sale, some are for rent. And again, people here, what are you going to do with it? Marijuana. Ding, 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 ding. Rate goes up
even
quick.
for sale? I could imagine.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, we're not trying to circumvent anything. We understand the location is very important. We totally get that. We're just trying to keep our ability to negotiate at the top so that we don't lose leverage.
right.
We still understand, we still have to get this approved.
Right,
Once we have the location, it still has to come back to both you and the planning board.
For the
and
special
get
use
approved.
permit.
What's your name, Jack? Tell him.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Jack Madigan,
What's your name, Jack?
New Canaan. Sorry about that.
No, it's for the cameras too.
It's for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're making a good argument, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the argument. Just to David's point, to the angst and the concern community-wide makes it
Yeah, we just
a
wanna
little
make
different
sure.
than a regular conversation. So, I mean, we have Kate coming on the 6th, so we certainly can have that conversation, the 6th with Kate.
Mm-hmm.
What their opinion is.
What did Kate say about this in general?
She made a note that the town has the ability to choose a location. So she kind of flagged that.
Again,
Town
we just-
has the
To
ability.
include a location on the
Right,
document.
right.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it had changed, because I really feel like that's the whole, I feel like the first couple that came in, at least the first one came in, I felt like I heard they had to have a location in order to do a host community agreement, but
No.
it must have.
No, they have to have the location in order to get to the,
CCC.
not for the, so when you file with the Cannabis Control Commission, there's 3 packets. The first packet, you can file without a location, which is what we did, and they assign you an application number. To get through to the point where they will review your application to determine it's a complete application, you have to have a location. There's no doubt about it. And we're not trying to make an end run around it. This is merely the timing, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, so to speak.
No, select person just St. John is just asking what were they told when
Yeah,
when
no, that's
the first application? And frankly, you're right. I wish I'd known that we could have denied, but at that point they already had a lease. But so it didn't occur to me.
That was the first one too, so it was kind of. We
That's
learned
fair.
in ourselves.
And I think I'd been in this seat for about a month, but still, like, it would have been good to know that particular what. So like that particular proposer, they came through. We were just trying to work with them and whatnot. But like we also didn't realize just how sensitive that particular location was to the public.
And that's what we wanted. We don't want to go through that same.
Correct.
What's the second one?
Sure. Okay. So for number 1, we'll continue this discussion on.
Yeah, we'll have
On the
a
next one?
discussion
Okay.
with Kate and just,
Great.
you know.
Okay. So the second.
It's nice to have an understanding of what.
Definitely.
The reasoning behind.
Yeah, we appreciate you gentlemen
Yeah.
coming in.
Definitely appreciate that.
That's we have that understanding.
So for number 2, retail sales prohibition. So town council suggested that the town prohibit the operation of self-service displays, which includes any display from which customers may select marijuana or marijuana-infused, so like THC, products without assistance from the operator. The applicant here, New Can's council, expressed that self-service displays are not the way of the industry, but they're not forbidden. And if the industry moves that way or moves that way for lower value items, they're saying that they'd need a way to compete with other lawful operators. So what we're looking to discuss today is how would the board like to proceed regarding the prohibition of self-service displays? And that again is language that was suggested by town council.
Self-serving display different than vending machines? Because there's an next one with the vending machine.
Right.
How is that different?
Can you
Self-service
gentlemen
displays
describe
are-
yourself?
Sure. Think of the self-serve like a liquor store. You go in, you pick out the wine you want, or the alcohol, you bring it up to the counter, versus
Oh,
a
thank
jewelry store, right? Jewelry store, you go and you say, I'd like that watch, and they say, great, we'll get it out for you. And your counsel is suggesting, if I understand this correctly, I'm just using it as an example, it should be run like a jewelry store. When the customer comes in, they can't touch anything, they have to ask for everything, and a sales associate has to hand it to them. And what we're suggesting is, right now, that's generally how the business is operating, but it's not. That's just, I think, the way it's going because it's in the early stages. I don't think it's going to take long before there are some items that are going to be self-serve. I don't think loose flour that you have to take out and weigh is going to be self-serve like coffee or nuts in a supermarket. But I think prepackaged items, you're going to see them, certain ones you're going to see self-serve. And just as an example, I was in a Wegmans store up in Syracuse a few weeks ago.
They sell it there?
Well, they sell THC there, right? CBD. They sell CBD, which is all the rage. They have a bottle of CBD for $74.99. Now, that bottle's probably 3.5 inches tall in a little box that's probably less than an inch square. If you think about that, $74.99, that's $10,800 per square foot. And they have it right out there. They had 12 feet of space, because I was fascinated. I took pictures of all of it, of all the different items. And it wasn't just low-value $5.99, $6.99, $10.99 items. These tiny bottles.
So is that the trend in other states that have already been in place for a while?
I don't know if it's the trend, but I think what we're going to see is In Massachusetts, I believe there's been legislation filed that's going to state that CBD oil, different from THC, right? This isn't the stuff that gets you high. That CBD oil is a food product, which will mean people will be able to sell it. Back in March, CVS announced they were going to start to sell CBD products in 800 of their stores. 8 days later, Walgreens announced they're going to sell it in 1,500 stores. 5 days later, the outgoing chairman of the FDA sent out cease and desist letters and said, you're not doing anything like that, not until the FDA says so. If you want to sell cosmetic items with CBD, you can do that. But you're not going to sell anything that goes inside somebody's body until we in the federal government say it's okay. And by the way, it's probably going to take us 3 to 5 years. There was such a backlash across from a lot of parties that the FDA is now talking about they may have preliminary regs together before the end of the year. At the end of May, Ben & Jerry's came out and announced, just make sure everybody's on their seat because I don't want anyone to fall off and get hurt, that as soon as it's legal, they're going to have CBD-infused ice cream.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah.
No shock from those
Well, that's
two guys.
because they do it already, so they're
Right,
up
so, it's the way the business is moving, and once everybody gets comfortable with the fact that most people who go into these marijuana stores are not stoners and they're not young kids, it's gonna turn to, all right, some of the stuff that is easy, we're gonna put out and let people select it and bring it out, and then if they say, well, I'd like 2 grams of this particular flour, somebody from behind the counter will pull out the glass vestibule, vessel, open it up, put the stuff on a scale, weigh it, put it into a package and seal it. And I think that's where eventually the industry is going to settle out.
It's going to be available in a vending machine.
The vending machine is a different issue. The vending machine, there was a company about 5 or 6 years ago that came out with an interesting kind of a vending machine. It wasn't that you walk in and you put money in it or a credit card and you select your items. You can't do that in Massachusetts. It is, while the law doesn't specifically state that vending machines are illegal, it states that there is a purchase limit on how much you can sell to a customer in a particular day. And if you have vending machines, right, and the customer can self-purchase, now you can't control. So you could have somebody who comes up, we've got 4 stations here, right? Somebody comes up and buys a certain amount of product from you and then turns around, walks over and buys more at the vending machine, and now you put your license in jeopardy because you can't control that. But there was a company that came out with a vending machine that had the product in it, and I don't want to bore you with too much of the details, but it was controlled behind the counter. So you'd come up to the counter, you'd get your order there, and for certain items that they were concerned that there could be employees that might put too much in an envelope, that sort of thing, they'd have it all prepackaged in the vending machine. They type the order in, and then you go over, punch out your code, and the vending machine would then give you the items. It was an additional layer of security.
That's controlled. Right?
These types of items, these types of things sound more to me like bylaws than something relative to an agreement with companies. In other words, a bylaw that is voted on by community members. My initial impression is I don't believe that the people going into these stores are stoners or whatever. I believe that they are legitimate. I believe in the legitimacy of the product, especially on the medical side. But I am concerned about the unknown, and that's that. So, what would prohibit us, if anything, from not including vending machines and these other things, but can't we revisit these host agreements down the road?
So item number 36 on the draft host community agreement is amendment, just like any other contract. So this agreement may only be amended by a written document duly executed by both parties. So on and so forth. So if that's, so.
So why
like any other, there might be something else that comes up.
So we don't need a vending machine, and I don't want to then have the other 2 companies coming in saying we want a vending machine.
CCC hasn't even approved it yet.
Yeah.
Right.
In terms of any of these things.
They're just
Vending machines,
anticipating. They want to be ready for that, but we could always go back and revisit this down the road.
Correct.
Yeah, we're not. Our concern is that the restrictions were put into the document. We're fine if it wasn't
I see
in
what
there.
you're saying.
But what happened is we got the document, which is different than the other 2 host community agreements. We're not objecting to that, but it's got a lot more restrictions on this. This one has a lot more restrictions that than what's in with the other two, as well as generally what we've seen in other communities. That's what our primary concern is. We're not looking to open up and say we're going to be self-serve for everybody, because we're not to that comfort level.
And the CCC will know
Well,
that anyway.
you're laughing about that, but there is a drive-through that's going to be in Uxbridge, I think. I think somebody bought an old car wash, and they're going to have a drive-through.
Nice.
There you go.
Get a free wash on the way out.
So my question about the host community agreements, because I know I haven't, it's been a while since we executed one. So I did not compare between the, which ones.
The first two are almost identical.
Right, and so what I think happened is that I know that it's been a year, and I think that our attorneys have seen a lot of what's gone on in other communities, which is why they've kind of
That's right.
nailed down more of the language, so.
That's right.
So that's kind, it's not that we're, obviously, we're not singling you out as.
Oh, no, we understand
whatever
that, right?
language or
People are
whatnot.
getting smarter as time goes by, and they went from a 6-page to a 12-page, and they tightened a lot of things up and better defined a lot of things. And most of it, I don't think we didn't really push back on a lot that was in there. I mean, a lot of it I thought was, there was one thing that we pushed back on that I think we agreed to quickly, which was there was language in here that sounded almost like we were going to have plants and be a cultivator when we're just a retail store.
Yep.
So we had to adjust, confine some of that down to the fact that we're just a retailer, right? And we don't bring the same risk to the community
Let's
as.
hire a good lawyer here.
Yeah.
Well, also, the self-serve thing, the CCC doesn't even allow that.
Right.
Okay, in terms of any of that. Colorado does, for instance, in different areas, okay, and other states do. That's why I think it got into the lawyers' thinking.
Right.
Massachusetts doesn't allow that,
Yeah.
okay? That would
Right.
all have to go through the CCC, You guys will have more than enough, you'll hear about it in the news and everything else.
Well,
This was just being.
yeah, and to be fair, I mean, I think Maynard as a community does rely on the CCC, but we also have our own authority within this document and others to, layer the amount of protection that the board and the community is interested in. So, although the CCC has regulations, it is within this board's prerogative to, make other adjustments that they think would be more appropriate for our community.
That's just, we've been so cautious, and we've relied almost completely on town council throughout this process, that we probably just, wait till the 6th and go through these things, but to get the background from you guys has been helpful on what we've talked about so far. The one item that I don't see us changing, at least from my standpoint, is the next one, which is on-site consumption. It's not happening.
That's fine.
I just think that's like it says here in the notes, it's a non-starter. I mean, I think it's a non-starter, I think, for the police department and for us. And
As it stands now, on-site consumption is prohibited in the regulations, right? So it would have to be at the state level that they would change it, and in light of the way the licensing scheme works, it is, consumption on-site is a separate license class. So I don't see that they're gonna turn, I don't see the state is going to allow retailers to have on-site consumption, unless you're gonna get a separate license class. And they're talking about that license class is gonna be reserved for social equity applicants.
who?
Social equity applicants. Think of economically disadvantaged, the people who are having a hard time getting a foothold in the industry. They call them cannabis cafes, basically.
That's coming down the pike.
Oh, it's already happened.
There's pilots out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're starting pilot programs in several communities, and they have the draft. I don't think they finalized the regulations yet.
No.
They published draft regulations about 2 weeks ago, and they're through mid-August, I think it is, as a
Separate
public
license.
comment period.
Different license.
I mean, that would, what we're trying to do is kind of equate marijuana retailers to liquor store retailers, if we're doing it that way. So you don't go to a liquor store and.
Right, yeah.
So, kind of the same thing-ish.
Our concern, and again, it's not that big of a deal because there's other issues on our side of it, which is on-site consumption can create more liability for the store. And there's not yet a truly effective way. Like impaired driving, you can test blood alcohol. They don't have as definitive a manner for determining impaired driving if somebody's had marijuana. But if there's a problem and they've consumed it in your facility, our concern is that still boomerangs back to the place that served it to them.
Anything else, you guys? Any other questions about, anything else, Megan, that we should be?
Nope,
aware
I
of?
think that's it. So we can revisit this as an agenda item.
Yeah, I
the
just
next
think
meeting.
it just makes sense for
Yeah,
at least for me.
absolutely.
I think everyone agrees that we just, Kate, we trust,
Yeah,
type of thing.
that's how I feel.
I'd also like to hear Melissa's thoughts.
Yeah, should be,
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Good point.
should be back.
And we very much appreciate you guys'
Yeah, we
explanation.
thank you for coming in.
You're
because
educating us, by the way, so
clears
it's a
up-
good thing.
Clears up any
Thank you.
any misconceptions about what you were asking for.
Yeah,
Yeah, to their credit, these gentlemen have been
Makes it easier for us.
absolutely,
very engaged.
yes.
And we appreciate you.
We appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
the fact that,
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
are trying to do our due diligence as well.
We understand that. We're not trying to, again, circumvent that. We
Right.
encourage it. I mean, and I'm kind of like a walking encyclopedia on this, so.
Yes, you are.
It's good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks
night.
very much.
Have a good night.
Wait, all right, TA report, thanks.
Oh, that was easy,
Oh.
Mr. Chairman.
So, it's just for everyone knows, Armin had asked about, getting a copy of the, year-to-date numbers once a month. And so, that's what all the financial stuff is on the, underneath.
And I apologize,
body
I
of it.
normally
No.
read that and I didn't get to read it.
But, I mean, I don't think we need Mike to explain it to
No.
us.
No, I just wanted to allow, in case you had any questions on it, but to the statement I made, it's not,
It's kinda
municipal
hard.
financing is really hard because it's not a solid like month-to-month purchase and loss. It's more like, we'll have encumbrances and we have paychecks that have not even done. Or we're waiting on, as you heard from Michelle Resendez, like we're waiting to hear back from this quote. We're waiting, and so like it's a very, as I wrote, fluid, for lack of a better term, but I think that's actually pretty precise. Like it is like it's difficult. So we can provide you a snapshot, but it has to come with that big asterisk as I wrote. Like it is not.
In years past, now we're going back several years,
Well, I'm like,
several town administrators ago.
Sure.
We would get quarterly updates
Oh, okay.
on actuals
Which I think,
versus real payments.
Yeah.
go ahead.
And not every line item in the damn budget, but,
Mike, hold on.
Yeah,
Hold on.
just give one to Armin. That's what we have, right?
Well, I don't know what he's passing out.
We'll answer
your
question.
Do we have that?
Do we have that on report?
Electronically?
Electronic one?
I don't
We have it
necessarily.
electronically, don't we?
Yeah, well, what basically.
No, all right, I know what this is. So Mike's pointing out,
This represents, we use, I used to submit this to Kevin and Andrew, and what they do with it, I have no idea. So now everything.
this is a list of all the different reports that Mike
Every
has.
report that you see there, that's the report that since I've been here, Cheryl and I have created. You name it, we do it.
Right.
So some of it are annual at the end of the year, like a balance sheet.
The reports, and there's no numbers.
Yeah, and
It's just a list of the reports.
So if I want
But-
one from
sure.
column A, one from column
what we
B.
used
Or
to-
another one, it
what
just
we
gives them
used
time to
get
create
was
it.
Yeah.
quarterly updates on actuals versus budgeted.
We do it monthly.
That was it.
Yeah.
But monthly, I certainly, I went
Yes,
blind
yeah.
looking at this, at this spreadsheet. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
I'm with you, I mean, quarterly it makes.
The thing is, we could give you whatever you want, but maybe coming in, you can look at the reports and say, well, Mike, like for instance, again, an example, when we did town meeting for the budget for enterprise, we do a comparison year to year in the budget. So we knew that we might have a problem with DOR because our budget maybe was more than the revenue and you were only allowed. So we created a report 2 or 3 years ago that does a comparison. Lo and behold, we cut the budget. Ironically, how close did we come? Within 20,000 of each one. That's how, what it does, a lot of these reports, even though we do them monthly, or however you want it, they're done year to date, we can do, whatever, but it tells us at a point in time if we have a problem. So before we even get to you, we know whether there's a problem.
Oh, certainly. So within each department, let me just use the town administrator's office. So before I even sign, invoices and whatnot, Becky writes down the account, how much money is remaining and whatnot, because I just, obviously I don't want to approve money that I don't have, but each department also does that. So it's layered upon layered upon layered, but again, it's all transparent. So it depends on what the board would like to see.
I mean,
there are certain,
Does it make sense that you say, you know, like, we get it monthly or whatever, you know, by departments? You know,
That's,
I mean, how detailed do you want?
I mean, I just want a snapshot.
if you come in and look at the reports, you tell me what you would like.
Okay.
A lot of the reports that you see here, believe it or not, because I have a statistical background, comes from being in the corporate world. And I said, if I'm in a town and we're just a corporate world, what would I like to see? Before I came here, what you see on that sheet didn't even exist. So people wondered what I did on my weekends. Well, that's what I do, is I create things, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's meaningless and I throw it away, which I've done. So.
I have a recommendation. So I can invite Selectman DePicarian to come and meet with us, and we'll show you what these reports could look like, and then you could say, this is...
But I also think, to David's point, quarterly,
Okay.
we guys used to get a quarterly. Was that something that was beneficial or
Yeah,
helpful?
well, okay, yes, but
And how detailed was it? Is it?
it was, I'm trying to remember, I mean, it was really just a snapshot at the end of the quarter to tell us that, yep, we're on target for our budgeting issues.
We do it monthly, so whatever you get would be quarterly, would be revenue.
4 of the 5 members of the board at that time were alumni of the finance committee.
Right.
So that was our focus.
How often does the finance committee get the report?
So it's kind of like an FYI.
Good question.
Heads up, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah. I mean, most of the reports you're looking for are already
That's where
done.
we're at.
Oh,
We're
no,
not
that's
in
what
any
he-
trouble.
that's what
Question
Greg told
of
me.
which ones
So how often
You
does
wanted
the
to-
finance committee?
How often does the finance committee see?
they get it monthly.
Yeah. So they're,
I guess they know what they're looking at, huh?
well,
Not
they,
necessarily.
Mike goes
I'm
to all his
gonna be
meetings, so like he gives the
Yeah,
real time.
so if there's any questions, but I literally go through every
Okay.
report every month. And if there's a problem, that's why when it came to the electric stuff, I was totally taken back because
Yeah.
we literally track it, and then all of a sudden, I look at past years and I'm saying, what happened? And I really don't know, but that's what I'm gonna find out, because it does not fit the pattern you were talking about. It absolutely
I
does
guess
not.
it's up to Chris whether or not we want this as a ongoing basis.
No, it's-
Monthly,
it's up-
quarterly,
it's
or
up
is
to
it
whoever.
individually we could go to the town, or?
Whatever,
You can always ask, like, we're always going to provide you anything you ask for. but-
whatever you're comfortable with.
We
I'm
could
fine
send
with
it to you quarterly, and then whatever you don't
Yeah, I
want.
think quarterly's
Quarterly's
fine.
Because at the end of the year, you're gonna get
Yeah, I know,
from me,
yeah.
not only are you gonna get a balance sheet of the general fund, every fund, you're gonna have the detail how we got to it. For retained earnings for water and sewer, you're gonna get something like that for free cash. You've seen it, that literally details every single department and brought it back, every single revenue, comparisons, the whole bit.
At the end of the year, though, I guess from the perspective of the board, it's too late, because then everything has happened, and now we
Right.
learn that there's an issue.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
the whole purpose of it is to just make sure that we know that the
You got
train
more
is-
eyes on, you know,
Exactly,
through
we
the-
know,
you got more
not
eyes
that
on-
I'm an expert on the line items, and,
I
we
mean-
know the train's running, and that we're
And
okay.
some of the
and
things
we're
we
not-
do.
It's your budget.
You may
Yeah.
seem ridiculous, but like when I came, I wanted to look at free cash. I went back 31 years, and I said, well, and so we've done, since Cheryl and I have been here together, more than we've done since, say, 13 to now, excluding this year, than we did in the prior 31 years.
So, Mr. Chairman, we can
So it's
provide that.
it's our way of measuring ourselves.
Yeah, and then to Greg's point he just made, I don't know if you heard, but he said it's your budget. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think to a degree, it's important that we know, since we're gonna approve it at the end of the year, you know.
Right, oh, I agree. I'm not disagreeing. I mean, a lot of what you're looking for is already done.
Okay.
And if it's not,
As long as
I'll
it's not
create
extra
it.
work, that's all, you know. we're not
Most
asking-
of it is not. If you tell me you want something that's a cross between, it doesn't take very long to do it. The only problem you have is that we've had 3 softwares. So some of the information goes back to 2008, some of it goes back to 2014, and then whatever I could get back prior to.
Well, they're not looking that far. They just us quarterly.
Yeah,
But Mike and I will review it before we go to the board, just to make sure I understand. So, Mr. Chairman, the other item, the other 2 quick things that I noted that weren't in my original report was, the board had asked me to keep them abreast of the status update with the school district's search for superintendent. But the board is probably just as aggressive, probably more so than I am. And then, but I included with the last piece of knowledge I got.
By the Beijing Royal School?
Nope, superintendent's
Oh, the
superintendent search.
Oh, the update on that.
On a sort of a similar note, Mike and I held what I like to call a summit with the I guess acting superintendent Jennifer Gaudet and school business manager Michelle Hernandez today, just so we kick off FY21 budget stuff and just start talking the same talk as we go into it before either of us really go down the road of FY21.
So are we going to wait for a superintendent to be in position before we work on our agreement, or how's that going to work?
Okay, all right. So I noted that in my TA report. So no, I'm not. Now, if the school board says they want to, that's up to them. But as far as the memorandum of understanding in regards to the facilities manager, as I noted in my TA report, there's a couple things that are holding me up. One, I don't have a DPW guy to help me find that facilities manager. Two, you're not. But even though I'm not waiting for a superintendent, it does slow down that they don't have a superintendent. And Jennifer Gaudet she's probably pretty busy these days to be able to do that. But mostly I was waiting on town council to work with school council to find out the next steps with that. And then I just want to alert the board to the situation with the town clerk's office. So town clerk is still on medical leave. I have been calling around trying to find a temporary. The one good lead I thought I had politely declined to be the temporary to help out in the clerk's office. So we moved to a new plan, which started today, which is to have Diane Donovan, who's the outgoing assistant town clerk, who is now the assistant collector in the treasurer collector's office, to serve 2 hours in the mornings, Monday through Thursday, for the clerk's office, just so we can have someone there to keep the essentials of the office functioning. And I'm working with Drive Tech to make sure that we can start collecting messages that have been going to Michelle in the meantime and whatnot. So it's I ask for the public's patience, but we're trying to keep that office functional for the essential tasks that are there.
That's a good plan. Okay. Under the Office of Municipal Services, and one of the bullets there says that you and Megan visited what do you call the Federal Investment Properties in Bedford. What's that all about?
So that is the property owner that owns a significant amount of.
That's that guy.
Yeah,
What's his name?
Keith Frizzell.
Keith? Yeah.
Yep, he owns a significant amount of property in Maynard Center. So Bill and I went out to Bedford to meet with him and his team to introduce ourselves, talk about a lot of our initiatives in town, and just try to open dialogue for communication between their office and the town. So. One of the things I'm working on is to try to do more outreach with other commercial property owners. They're kind of the first on my list because they do have such so many properties in the core center. But it was a good conversation, and
did you meet with Keith, or you met with?
Yep.
Oh, you did.
I met with Keith and his team. Yep, I think I sent you those. I have some notes from it, but
I just didn't know that was the name.
Yeah, that's the name of it exactly.
Yeah, it's a strange name.
Yep.
Yeah. It almost sounds like FBI,
Yeah.
So I have a question in here as well, where it's the Coolidge School Reuse Committee.
Yep.
Develop a proposed draft of the request for proposals to dispose of the Coolidge School.
Dispose is the procurement title for selling it. So you acquire property or you dispose of property.
All right.
It's like a disposition. You dispose of it.
So it comes from the word disposition.
Did we vote on that town meeting?
Not yet.
It got declined at last year's town
Yeah,
meeting.
that was the one before that was a whole different issue.
So this.
That's why Linda's involved.
That's
Yes.
right. So we put the loudest voice in charge. So,
okay.
so
Well, okay.
she provided me a draft this week. I just need to now it's kind of in my I just need she did a great job. I just need to finalize it.
Okay.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I see that there's a couple mentions here about some stuff taking place at the cemetery. I'm not going to stop somebody that's making public comments, but it was difficult to bite your tongue with, kind of knocking every department in town when I'm quite sure that, a lot of the information was not correct. But I'm not going to argue with somebody standing here. But can we just have someone that's in the cemetery department if we get a chance, take a look around and
Definitely.
make an assessment of some of the things that she kind of had
She's
mentioned.
claiming whether or not it's covered up with, the
I'm
stones
going to
or
look into it. I
Yeah,
mean, you just appointed Ed Sokolowski as the Veterans Graves Officer, so that's,
Yeah.
so there are people who are already accountable to those sort of, at a number of,
Right.
I made a lot of notes, so I will follow up.
Okay.
And like claims, I'm gonna make, it's, if there are claims that need to be reported in regards to damage to vehicles, I encourage the public to please notify the DPW department, and we will follow through with those claims.
And that was, and also the roads, so the roads
I mean,
are
you know,
are because of, it needs to settle, and then.
Yeah, the
it will
issue,
be paid.
I mean,
It's not-
we should, I would think that, she brought it up, so that we ought to address it to her, and if you want me to send her an email, I'll send her an email, but,
I don't have her email, so
well, drop a note off, I'll just write a note and drop it by and explain.
speaking of,
I will email, Wayne and ask him to just kind of write me a note on Waltham and Powder Mill.
oh, okay,
As to what's going on with those two streets and those
Okay.
things are left that way for a reason, because they're settling, because of the changes were drastic and that not, and just address it.
Okay.
But, hey, the truth of the matter is, with the exception of one family in the town of Maynard, I'm pretty sure that, our cemeteries have been getting rave reviews from many people for the condition that we've been keeping them in the past several years and everything else, so.
Hmm.
We can argue about that, but,
I don't take it lightly though, so I'll look into it. And
yeah, that's
But
all I have.
I think that's a nice approach.
I'm gonna have Wayne write it up and
Yeah.
I'll hand deliver it and,
Um,
see Vic.
This way it sounds like we're listening.
So, I mean, it's out of the box, it's creative.
Yeah, out of the box.
Uh,
Hey, can I make a quick comment in regards to town hall? And I know we had someone reached out to me and I think copied Megan on an email where she had a bad experience in dealing with the situation.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just hoping that you're addressing that.
I did.
Okay.
did.
I think it's important that people walk away with a positive experience, even though it was a misunderstanding.
100%.
Yeah, so,
100%.
all right.
Customer service has been I address it almost every senior staff meeting. Yes.
And
Even in the
I notice
interviews,
sometimes when I sit here in a meeting like the EDC meeting, when I see people saying, well, let me take you downstairs to the department, that's a great approach.
Exactly.
Because that's what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't just say, go down, make a left, and,
I did do that today. I admit, but everyone else is better than I am at it. But no,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
That's why you stay in your office.
Yeah, I'm not customer first facing, but no, I fully agree, and I take it very seriously.
You know who's really good at it, Sandra.
Really?
She's so nice.
She's the face.
That's nice.
So when people come in, she really, talks to them and just knows, and basically, I'm saying something I think should be said.
A lot of times that's first impression when you come to town hall to deal with a new business or whatever situation you may. So it's important.
100%.
Besides the visual first impressions that I care about in town, this is a different one.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, anything else, Ahmed?
I'm good. I know you're gonna move on.
Mr. Gavin?
Yeah, quickly. You mentioned it in the town administrator's report, but 31 Main Street, where they ripped down the building, just tearing down someplace like that, I think that changes the look.
I agree.
Yeah, I just walked by today.
Dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
In a positive way.
I had lunch at the PC, and then I felt like the
Watching
next
it
day
from across the
it
way.
was gone, and then and to your point, totally
People,
changes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so, I mean, that's how development and, just thinking out of the box,
Yeah.
can really improve a
Yeah.
downtown area. It's dramatically different.
Yeah.
And now putting in a mixed-use
yeah.
property that sort of complements the Walgreens building or the Emerson building.
Emerson.
And, we can really begin, that process can begin, so it's a positive, it's a
Yeah.
good thing. The other comment I wanted to make was the sad comment relative to the loss of Mrs. McLaughlin
No,
in
boy,
town.
that's right.
Those of us who have been around for a while knew Mrs. McLaughlin as the principal at Green Meadow, but also as a wonderful woman around town who was just so, I've mentioned to so many people that I think she was one of the friendliest women I've ever met in my life. And it was so sad to hear of
She
her
was known as
passing.
Bernie, by the way.
Yeah. Sad to hear of her passing, and I was glad I was able to make it over to recognize her family. And, Maynard has lost an important figure of our past, and it's important that we recognize it. So I just wanted to say that.
And she was a champion, because she just cared about the town and cared about the schools and the kids.
Mr. Curcio as well.
Say that again?
Mr. Curcio, the former gym teacher.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't mean to
Yeah, that's right.
dismiss his passing either.
Thing. Same type of person. Pains me so. Justine?
Hi.
Hello. Your turn.
Yay. No, I actually don't have too much. I'm meeting tomorrow with Greg and the rest of the working group for, I don't know what it's called anymore, for Green Meadow, to meet with Bill Goddard, who's the project manager, and just to continue seeing the process, the progress of the building, to make sure that it is ready, and not any surprises, or if there are surprises, we're aware of it. So, other than that,
So, it's really not a priority to get the other gavel back, but this thing is heavy. It could do some damage. This could do some damage to the table, huh?
They did take it.
So the school committee took them.
Oh, I know,
When they were here, I said, I asked them,
I
I
will
said,
get
"Did you
it.
take my gavel?" And she said,
No, I'll get it.
she said, "I think we put it in our bag," because they had their names up here, and they took it. So anyways, this is nice, but I'm afraid to hit the table with it, so.
It was a joke.
Make a motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor? And our next meeting is August 6th.
Yes.
Time we'll have Ms. Federoff in.
Excellent.
Those of you